Welcome! I am not doing this voice for the entire video. That's not even the kind of vampire that this game's about. Recently, I had the pleasure of playing Vampire the Masquerade for the first time with my friends over at Tabletop Discussion and Discourse. We've actually been playing for about 7 or 8 months now, and it's been an absolute blast to the point where I wanted to cover it on this channel and teach you how to make your character in 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade the most updated version of the rules. If you're unaware, Vampire the Masquerade is one of the multiple World of Darkness tabletop role-playing games where you are specifically playing as kindred, mortals who have been embraced by the beast and thus have been given an eternal unlife of really unfortunate and miserable suffering. Seriously, this game is heavy. I never walk away from a session happy, and I love it. So if you've ever wondered how to make your own kindred, sit back. I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know, because while this game is incredibly simple to play, there's a lot of moving parts, and making your first character can be a little bit overwhelming. But first, I'm gonna go take this off because I'm not wearing a bathrobe in the middle of summer. It's too hot. There, it's red and black, so it's still on theme. I want to give a huge shout out to the members of the No Not Ones Patreon before we jump into this. Everybody on this list is supporting me and the channel and everything I do. If you would like to get a name on this list, there is a link in the description where you can pledge for $1, $5, $10, or $20 a month. They all do the exact same thing, they just support me a little bit more. So if this video really helped you out in making your first vampire character, consider throwing me a little something. Or don't. I'm not your dad. Yet. Before we get into character creation proper, Vampire the Masquerade actually has 2 methods of character creation. There's the one we're going over today, which is just filling everything in before your first session, but they also have the show, don't tell style, which mechanically works the same way. You're going to get all the same features of a starting character. However, rather than going into session 1 with a finished character, you're only going to fill out the basics and then fill in the rest as you play as things come up. You can still use the information in this guide in that method of play, but I'm going to be going over this guide assuming that you are creating your entire character before session 1. But if you do want to use the show don't tell style, there is an entire list on screen that you can screenshot if you want and cross off as they come up in your show don't play sessions to make sure you get everything your starting kindred is supposed to have over the course of 2 or 3 sessions. I'm also not going to be going super into the lore of the World of Darkness in this video. I'll explain certain words like coterie or diablerie if they come up. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But unless it's mechanically relevant, I won't be going over everything that makes the Masquerade the Masquerade. Also, before we get into character creation proper, I do want to quickly let you know how rolling works in Vampire the Masquerade, just so you're a little more informed when you're putting points into a skill or an attribute. Vampire is a D10 success-based system. What that means is that whenever you need to make a check, the storyteller is going to ask for an attribute and a skill. Let's say you're trying to break down a door. The storyteller might ask for your strength and athletics. You are then going to roll a number of D10s equal to your total level, adding those 2 combined. For example, if you have 3 strength and 2 athletics, you're going to roll 5d10. For each d10 that rolls a 6 or higher, that is 1 success, and the DC for each check is a certain number of successes. To break down that door, if it's a flimsy wooden door, maybe you only need 2 successes, but if it's like secured by iron hinges, you might need like 4 successes. This does mean that some rolls are outright impossible if you don't have enough dice to roll. If 2 dice ever both show a 10 on their face, that is a critical success, which counts for a total of 4 successes. But keep in mind that criticals are not always a good thing. With all that information, this is the character sheet I'm going to be using in today's video. There is a link in the description you can get to follow along with me. It is phenomenal. It has everything you need, and I'm going to be going over this sheet top to bottom, left to right. You also only need to worry about the first 2 pages. Everything beyond that is either additional rules that I'm not getting into in this video, or purely for flavor. And the final thing I want to say is that before even starting character creation, I would get a good idea of who your character is, or at least who they were. What was their mortal life like? Who did they know? What did they do? What were they like before they were embraced and turned into a kindred? If you've got that all in mind and you're ready to go, let's start filling out boxes, starting with name and player. I don't think I have to explain this one. And the Chronicle is just the title of your campaign. No, the first box that has mechanical impact is your clan. Throughout the World of Darkness, Kindred find themselves in one of multiple different clans, and this is sort of like your class in more traditional fantasy RPGs. There are 7 clans available in the core rulebook for 5th edition Vampire, but there are also 2 more advanced options that I don't recommend for new players, but they're always available, and those are the Caitiff and the Thin Blood. Your clan selection determines 2 major things. First off, your clan disciplines, which are supernatural powers that you have a natural affinity to performing and learning. You can still learn other disciplines outside of these, but they are harder to learn. The other important aspect is your clan bane. Every specific type of kindred has their own bane, their natural impulses and things they cannot control that come up in certain situations. There are other ripple effects for your clan decision, things like clan-specific compulsions and clan-specific advantages, but for now, pick the clan that resonates most with your character. Each clan tends to attract people of certain personalities and archetypes, and I always recommend picking something that fits you rather than something that plays a mechanically specific way. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each clan, their clan disciplines, and their bane here. Something to keep in mind again is that these clan disciplines are not the only powers you can learn, but learning outside disciplines from your clan costs more experience. Vampire the Masquerade doesn't have arbitrary level ups like other TTRPGs, rather experience is a currency earned by session that can be spent on new abilities, and spending experience to learn a clan discipline is cheaper than learning any other discipline. All of the information I tell you here can be documented on the second page of the character sheet we're using, and if you want to learn more about your clan's specific compulsion, you can move to page 210 of the core rulebook. Starting off with the Brujah. The Brujah are rebels at heart. They thrive in anarchy. They are anti-establishment. They are the revolutionaries of the Masquerade. And while people tend to see gangsters and thugs and spray-painting graffiti artists, Brujah can also attract people who would dismantle authority from the inside. Lawyers working pro bono, nerds pirating softwares, even secretaries accidentally leaking official government information. Their clan disciplines are celerity, potence, and presence, and the bane of the Brujah clan is their short temper, their anger. Whenever they are rolling to resist a frenzy caused by intense negative emotion or provocation, they roll less dice equal to their bane severity. The Gangrel clan has an innate connection to wildlife around them. By forgoing some of what makes them human, they gain the ability to communicate with and control beasts, even turning those beasts into their own thralls and familiars. Outdoorsmen, transients, and even people kept in cages like prisoners often find themselves as part of the Gangrel clan. Their clan disciplines are animalism, fortitude, and protean, and the bane of the Gangrel clan is their inability to control their own shape-shifting prowess while in a frenzy. If a Gangrel ever succumbs to frenzy, they start gaining a number of animal parts on their body equal to their bane severity. This can be wolf claws, cat eyes, feathers growing out of them. Each of these animalistic parts reduces one of their main attributes by 1. For example, if you grow bear claws, you might lose 1 to your dexterity since you can't pick things up as easily. The storyteller decides which attributes are reduced and which animal parts you grow. Many other kindred would call Malkavians mad or insane. And while this is not an inaccurate description, they also have an undeniably powerful 6th sense of insight. Empaths, occultists, and even people with almost unhealthy hyperfixations can find themselves getting mixed up with the Malkavian clan, oftentimes getting even more focused on their hyperfixations in their new unlife. Their clan disciplines are Auspex, Dominate, and Obfuscate, and the bane of the Malkavian clan is their own lack of focus when becoming mentally unstable. While succumbing to a frenzy, the storyteller will describe some kind of loss of focus, loss of balance, or something else that will cause you to take a permanent -1 to all dice pools for either physical, social, or mental rolls for the rest of the current scene. The lost, the broken, the ugly, the Nosferatu. This clan tends to attract people who society wouldn't and likely doesn't miss. People who found themselves on the streets or hiding away from society, introverts, neets, people who didn't want to face the light of day, and when becoming a Nosferatu, actually warp their own bodies, their skin stretching taut, their features growing more grotesque and monstrous to the point where they don't want to be seen. Luckily, this desire to not be seen has translated to their own abilities, and they have become incredible spies and assassins within the Camarilla. The Camarilla, by the way, is the greater organization at large, including most kindred, except the Anarchs, but this isn't a lore video. Nosferatu clan disciplines are animalism, obfuscate, and potence, and their bane is exactly what I said. They are repulsive. In fact, they automatically gain the repulsive flaw on their character. They can never spend experience to improve their looks in any way, and if trying to disguise themselves as a normal human, they take a penalty to the role equal to their bane severity. Creativity and passion. Two words that the world glorifies and puts on a pedestal, but the Toreador clan see those words as a means to an end of perfection, manipulation, and power. The everyman is easily convinced by a witty joke, a sly smile, or a jaw-dropping work of art, and that's when they're most vulnerable. Their clan disciplines are Auspex, Celerity, and Presence, and their clan bane is actually their own almost actual addiction to beauty and art. If a Toreador is ever in an environment that actively repulses them due to its lack of beauty, they take a penalty to all dice rolls equal to their bane severity. Additionally, anytime a Toreador suffers a bestial failure, they enter a nearly catatonic state where they hyperfixate and focus on something of raw beauty, or perhaps even their own beautiful perfection. There's even rumors that members of the Toreador clan have died because they could not look away from their own reflection in the glass while the sun was rising. The Tremere are a very unique clan. They are a clan with dormant magic actively running through their veins that they themselves cannot access. They have the ability to warp the world around them and bring their desires to life if only they could figure out how to access it. This causes many Tremere to travel the world seeking artifacts and forbidden knowledge to help them find some way to access these dormant powers, sometimes even signing contracts with even more powerful supernatural beings. Their clan disciplines are Auspex, Dominate, and they are the only clan whose clan discipline is blood sorcery. However, due to the dormant power in their own vitae, or vampire blood, they are unable to form blood bonds with other kindred. Typically, anybody, even another kindred, who feasts upon the blood of a kindred will find themselves subconsciously attracted to the blood they've drunk and will follow the orders of the blood's owner. However, Tremere lack this ability due to their weak vitae, and even converting a mortal into a thrall requires far more indulgence in their blood than usual. Typically, a mortal will be converted into a thrall after imbibing in a kindred's blood 3 times. However, for Tremere, they must imbibe a number of extra times equal to their bane severity. And the final official clan in the core rulebook are the Ventrue, the chosen ones destined to control the Camarilla and by extension, their fellow kindred. Tradition and lineage are of utmost importance to the Ventrue's continued strength, and thus they reward the politicians, the financially successful, those who aren't afraid to put themselves, and more importantly, their clan, above all else. However, because of this self-centered, hyper-important nature, they often find themselves the targets of assassinations and anger from the other clans of the Camarilla. Regardless of this, the Ventrue hold the most positions of power within the Camarilla and do not plan to change that anytime soon. Their clan disciplines are Dominate, Fortitude, and Presence, and believe it or not, their bane is that they are picky eaters. I'm not kidding. Except in the most dire of circumstances, a Ventrue must feed from their preferred target type. This can be things like mortals with addictions, or even people with specific hair color. And this is a physical need for the Ventrue. If the Ventrue ever tries to feed on a target that does not match their preference, they will immediately retch all of the blood back up and not satisfy any hunger. If the Ventrue truly wants to feed from someone that does not match their target preference, they must spend willpower equal to their Bane severity to feed. Those are the 7 basic clans, and the next 2 options I'm going to describe are a lot more advanced than the other 7, and they don't work the exact same way, starting with the Caitiff. The Caitiff are clanless. There is nowhere that you call home, and possibly your sire was a Caitiff, or you were simply discarded because of a defect in your vitae. You don't belong. But over time, the Caitiff are turning bolder. They're gathering together, and they are consciously turning more mortals into Caitiffs to prove that they are not defects. A Caitiff can come from almost anywhere, but their typical targets are those who have been through hardships, unhoused, traumatized, knowing that they can handle the idea that no clans will ever accept them, but they won't stop fighting. Caitiffs do not have any specified clan disciplines. Rather, upon character creation, you can choose any 3 disciplines to become your clan discipline, and the Caitiff can learn any other clan disciplines easier than a normal kindred by feasting on the blood of a kindred who has that discipline. However, with this freedom comes restriction. While you do start with 3 clan disciplines to pick from for character creation, these are not as cheap to learn as a normal kindred's clan discipline, costing 6 times the discipline's new level and experience rather than 5. However, learning new disciplines, which normally cost 7 times the new level, instead also only cost 6 times the new level for the Caitiff. So the Caitiff can truly become a master of many different disciplines. However, they will always struggle to increase the power of specific disciplines. Additionally, if any kindred knows that you are clanless and a Caitiff, you will automatically be considered to have the suspect flaw when engaging with them in social situations. And the final option for your kindred is really hard to pull off: the thin blood. As kindred embrace more and new generations of kindred are born, the blood is getting thinner. Their vitae has thinned to a point where on rare occasions the embrace may fail, and this failure births a creature known as a thin blood, a sign of prophecy that the end of the world is fast approaching. The Camarilla themselves despise and revile thin bloods, and any known thin bloods are demanded to brand themselves with the mark of the crescent moon, so that anybody who sees this branding knows they are a thin blood. Even the sires who birthed these thin bloods are embarrassed and ashamed of their own child, who has effectively become a walking reminder of the weakness of their vitae. Thin bloods cannot form blood bonds, they cannot create new kindred, and if they convert a mortal into a thrall, the mortal returns to normal the following day. Thin bloods have a blood potency of 0, I'll go over that later, and they take damage like a normal mortal. Normally being shot by a gun, if you are a kindred, will only deal superficial damage. However, thin bloods do not have the supernatural resilience and thus take aggravated damage from things like gunshots, punches, weapon attacks. They do, however, still have the ability to mend themselves in the same way as vampires. They have the supernatural healing, but not the resilience. Thin bloods also have no clan disciplines and in fact cannot learn clan disciplines via experience. Rather, whenever they feast on the blood of a kindred who has a certain discipline, they gain 1 level in that discipline and a level 1 power of their choice from it. They then have access to this new power until they feed again, either replacing it with a new discipline by feeding on a kindred, or losing it entirely if they feed on a mortal. This has led the Thin Bloods to often attack the kindreds that have despised them to gain access to powers they otherwise cannot use. However, being a Thin Blood also comes with advantages. The beast is barely there in their blood, and as such, they cannot succumb to frenzy. They are also always considered under the effects of blush of life, allowing them to experience all 5 human senses, eat normal food, have sexual encounters, and for all intents and purposes are indistinguishable from a human. This even extends itself to sunlight capabilities. While the sun does still kill them eventually, rather than near immediate death, they can spend a few turns in sunlight before being eradicated. Finally, when building your character and picking advantages and flaws, Thin Bloods have access to Thin Blood merits and Thin Blood flaws, and you must pick between 1 and 3 of each. You must always pick the same number of flaws as you do merits, so if you pick 2 merits, you must take 2 flaws. And those are all the clans available in Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. The next decision you're going to have to make is your predator type. Every kindred has to eat, and this determines exactly how you go about feeding. Every single predator type grants you a specialty to a specific type of skill, which means if you are ever rolling that skill and the situation involves your specialty, you get 1 extra dice to roll. After that, though, every single predator type functions in its own way, some granting massive bonuses in exchange for massive penalties, or other just giving penalties, but giving you more of your humanity back with something like Consensualist. I highly recommend you pick a feeding style that vibes with your character. Don't pay too much attention to the bonuses and penalties of each one, and just pick the one that you truly believe your kindred would feed like. Just fair warning, Consensualist is really hard if you're playing an empathetic kindred, speaking from experience. Your character's ambition is their current end goal. This is everything they are currently working towards. And this doesn't even have to be something in the story, it can be something mechanical. 2 examples of perfectly fine ambitions would be finding my long-lost sister, or reaching level 3 in Auspex. Most of this is purely for flavor. However, the moment you accomplish your current ambition, you can heal 1 aggravated point of willpower damage. And this is important. Willpower is a great skill because it allows you to re-roll dice. More on that later. Also worth mentioning, the fact that it heals aggravated damage is very important. Vampire the Masquerade has 2 types of damage, aggravated and superficial. Superficial damage, very easy to fix. Aggravated, much harder. So fulfilling your ambition is a great goal. If the ambition is your current end goal, your desire is your goal today. This can be anything you want it to be, but ideally it should be something that pushes the story forward. Something like, I want to help somebody today, or I want to make it home after work. Something simple like that is a great desire, and upon fulfilling your desire once per session, you can heal 1 superficial willpower damage, because it feels good to get things done. It's like when you finally clean the kitchen. Your sect will likely be decided by your storyteller. There are only 2 main sects within the Vampire the Masquerade universe, the Camarilla and the Anarchs, and technically the Thin Bloods as well are their own sect. Chances are you'll be playing as the Camarilla, but if you're in a more anachronistic campaign, you might play as the Anarchs trying to overthrow the Kindred government. This has no mechanical impact and is purely for flavor. Rank and title is your kindred's age. How long ago were they embraced? Chances are you're playing as a child or someone who was embraced within the last 15 years. You might possibly be playing as a neonate, somebody who was embraced within the past 100 years. Beyond that are the Ancillae, who are between 100 and 250 years, and then the Elders, which were turned over 250 years ago, but are still walking the earth. Elders are so powerful that there are no actual rules in the core rulebook to even play as an Elder, and I would highly recommend not letting players play as Ancillaes either, as they get a massive experience bonus, 15 experience points for neonates, 35 for Ancillae. But if you do want a higher power game, Ancillae is not a bad option. I would just ensure everybody at your table is playing the same age of kindred. Next up are the 9 main attributes in the game, and these are strength, stamina, and dexterity for your physical attributes. Charisma, manipulation, and composure are your social attributes, and intelligence, wits, and resolve are your mental attributes. All 9 of these work the exact same way. Whatever level they are, you add that many dice to a roll that involves that attribute. However, 3 of these attributes have an additional use. Your level in stamina is added to your maximum health, and your willpower reserve is equal to your composure plus your resolve. There is no rolling for stats in Vampire the Masquerade. Every single kindred starts with the same basic array of attributes. A single attribute at level 4, 3 attributes at level 3, 4 attributes at level 2, and 1 attribute at level 1. And I love this. Every single kindred is going to have one attribute they are amazing at, and one attribute that they are absolutely awful at. I love that the game forces you to give yourself a weakness. Skills work almost the exact same way as attributes. Whatever level they are, if a roll involves that skill, add that many dice. And unlike attributes, you can actually pick between 3 different arrays of skill levels. Now, pardon me as I read these off because I'm not memorizing all of these. Jack of all trades gives 19 total skills, however, most of them are at lower levels. The balanced array gives you 15 skills, with multiple of those skills being at a bit more of a mid-level proficiency. And the specialist array only gives you 10 skills, but one of them does get to start at level 4. So it comes down to whether or not you want a lot of skills you're okay at, or a few skills you're amazing at. Now, there's something important here to keep in mind, and that's the experience cost of upgrading a skill. To learn a skill to level 1, you must spend 3 experience points. To upgrade it beyond that, it is 3 experience points times the new level. So to upgrade something from level 1 to level 2 is 6 experience points. But to upgrade something from level 4 to level 5 is 15 experience points. And by the rules, you typically only get 1 experience point per session, with 1 additional experience point after finishing a major story beat. There's alternate rules for running a faster campaign, which recommends 2 experience points per session. Regardless, saving up 15 experience takes a long time. I've played about 20 sessions of Vampire, and I think I've upgraded 1 skill total. It's not a game about rushing to a specific end game build at high level, rather it's about enjoying the story and watching small improvements to your character over time. Next up, advantages and flaws are character-specific bonuses and penalties. I'm not going to go over all of them here, there are far too many, but there are 3 spots on the character sheet to fill out. The first 2 are merits and backgrounds. Merits are advantages that are because of who you are. If you have really good looks, that is a merit. However, if you have incredibly reliable allies, that is a background. Each of these advantages comes with a number of dots, and you may start the game with 7 dots worth of advantages, so you could get 2 3s and a 1, or 7 1-dot advantages. You must also begin the game with 2 dots of flaws, and those go over on the right-hand side. If any of your chosen advantages give you a home base, it'll come with a rating, and you can put that right under the Haven box with the same number of dots. At the bottom left of this first page, you can see your health and willpower, each represented by 2 bars, one of squares and one of circles. Maximum health is equal to stamina plus 3. If you have 2 stamina, then you would mark the 5th circle. Then, anytime you take damage, either superficial or aggravated, you will mark boxes below. A slash for superficial, an X for aggravated. If all 5 boxes are filled, whether with superficial, aggravated, or a mix, you become impaired, and while impaired, you take a 2 dice penalty to all rolls until you heal. If you ever take damage while all 5 boxes are marked, even if it's superficial damage, one of the existing superficial damages becomes aggravated, and if your entire health bar is ever all aggravated damage, you immediately fall unconscious, or if the creature is a mortal, they die. Willpower works almost the exact same way. Your maximum willpower is equal to your resolve plus your composure, and various things will inflict superficial or aggravated willpower damage. Just like health, if the entire bar is ever filled, you become impaired with the same penalty, and if it all becomes aggravated, you don't immediately die, but you will suffer a massive mental breakdown, typically losing if you are in some kind of social encounter. If you're trying to defend yourself in court, but you just got filled with aggravated willpower damage, you will likely be evicted from the courtroom. The most common way of taking willpower damage is re-rolling dice. At your discretion, you can spend 1 superficial willpower damage to re-roll up to 3 dice in a check, unless those dice are hunger dice. More on that later. Your humanity bar has various mechanical impacts, but at its core, it is how human your kindred still is. The longer the beast is inside of you, the more it's going to wear you down and kill your empathy for your fellow humans. All characters start with the baseline humanity of 7, but it can be raised or lowered with different character creation selections, such as certain predator types increasing or decreasing it. Humanity also determines how useful your Blush of Life ability is. The higher your humanity, the more human-like senses and experiences you can have when you use Blush of Life. The lower your humanity, the less senses you get to feel. The less you care, the less activities you can enjoy as a human, even to the point where humans will find you less recognizable as one of them. At low levels of humanity, kindred start taking inherent penalties to social checks interacting with humans, and should a kindred's humanity ever hit 0, that is one way for a character to die. Metaphorically speaking, the moment your kindred's humanity reaches 0, they are nothing more than a vessel for the beast itself, a snarling, hungry creature under the storyteller's control. Forever. Typically, whenever committing a heinous act, you will suffer a stain and you will have to make a roll. If you fail, your humanity goes down. If you succeed, it stays where it was. The most common source of stain is fully draining a human to satiate your hunger. So let's talk about hunger. The beast within you demands to be fed, and this is represented by your hunger bar at a level of 0 to 5. All characters start with 1 hunger. Whenever you roll dice, with 2 exceptions, you will replace a number of d10s with hunger dice. These function the same way when it comes to the skill roll. They are also a d10. However, if you fail a check and roll a 1 on the hunger dice, you suffer what is known as a bestial failure. This leads to a heavy compulsion from the beast within you. This can be hunger, paranoia, the need to dominate lesser people, even something specific to your clan. The storyteller decides how your bestial failure manifests and either lets you roleplay it yourself or, in drastic situations, takes control of your character for the moment. However, sometimes more scary than a bestial failure is a messy critical. Should you ever get a critical roll, which remember is 2 successful dice with the same number on them, and any hunger dice involved in that roll shows a 10, you do critically succeed. You're gonna knock that skill check out of the park, but it might not be you critically succeeding. It's the beast. You accomplish your task, but potentially with terrifying consequences. For example, if you were rolling to subdue somebody who was attacking you, and you were just trying to non-lethally maybe choke them and knock them out to leave them behind, but you roll a critical success, well, you subdue them. Maybe a little too hard and too long. And when you look down, they're not just unconscious. Hunger dice are incredibly dangerous, and as I said before, willpower cannot be used to re-roll them. As your hunger increases, typically from failing rouse checks, more of your dice are replaced by hunger dice, and the probability of messy criticals and bestial failures gets more and more likely. To reduce your hunger, all you have to do is feed. Typically, just feeding on a human will reduce your hunger by 1. However, hunger can only go as low as 1 unless you fully drain a human. If you kill a human by fully feeding on them, your hunger can go from 1 to 0. However, this will cause you to suffer a stain and roll to maintain your humanity. So it's a balancing act. Do you fully drain someone thinking you can handle it with the humanity to get rid of your hunger and thus subdue the beast for now? Or press your luck and possibly the beast takes over anyway? Resonance is not very important on your character sheet. Some quick lore: resonance is someone's blood type based on a current emotion they are feeling due to hormones moving through their blood. There are 4 types of resonance, with a 5th one including animal. They're not that important. Basically, if you're angry, happy, sad, or horny, you will be one of the 4 resonances. This doesn't have much impact on your character sheet and usually just matters for mortals that are being fed on. There is some lore about how certain resonances empower certain disciplines, and there are some mechanics around it, but I'm not going over them in this video. Your blood potency comes with a plethora of different benefits and penalties, and most player characters will have a blood potency of 1 unless you are playing a thin blood. The only kindred with higher blood potency than 1 tend to be much, much older. In a lot of ways, blood potency tends to be the opposite of humanity. A major thing that it's affected by blood potency is your ability to use blood surge. When you are rolling anything, any dice, except for a couple exceptions I believe, you can make a rouse check and then add a number of dice to your roll equal to your blood potency's blood surge bonus. So if you're rolling 3 dice, but you know you need all 3 to succeed, maybe you use blood surge to add a couple dice to it to increase your chances of success. Characters with a blood potency of 1 get to add 2 dice to their roll when using Blood Surge. And when rolling a rouse check for a discipline level 1 power, you can roll it twice and take the better result. However, you immediately jump up to Bane Severity 2. Now, most players aren't going to need to worry about going beyond into higher levels of blood potency, but if you do, beware, because as your blood potency increases, it becomes harder and harder to slake your own hunger. Things like consuming animals or drinking blood from blood bags will no longer be able to lower your hunger. Your minimum hunger gets higher, so do yourself a favor and stay below blood potency 4. The final mechanic I'm covering in this guide is your starting disciplines. Remember, your clan has 3 preferred disciplines, and these are cheaper to learn and upgrade than the other disciplines in the game. However, if you can ever drink the blood of a kindred with those disciplines, you can still spend experience to learn those disciplines, albeit more expensive. When you create a character, you will select 2 of your clan's 3 disciplines. One of them you can set to level 2, the other one will be set to level 1. Whenever you have a certain number of levels in a discipline, that is also how many powers you know within that discipline. So if I'm playing a Bruja with Celerity level 2 and Potence level 1, I will have 2 Celerity powers and 1 Potence power, and my second Celerity power can be a level 2 power or level 1. You don't have to take a level 2, you can always take a power equal to your level or lower. But the first power you pick for Celerity does need to be level 1. Every single discipline power in the entire game works in its own unique way. Some call for skill checks, some of them are passive, a lot of them call for rouse checks. Keep that in mind. If it calls for a rouse check, that means there is a risk that your kindred becomes hungrier every time you use it. And there's a lot to pick from. Every single discipline, all with multiple abilities, and especially if you pick up some of the supplementary books like the Player's Guide, there's even more options out there. And with that, you have everything you need to play your Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition character. Now, some veterans of the game might notice that I skipped over something that I'm going to go over really fast, but I saved it for the end because I don't think it's that important mechanically, even though it's quite important roleplay-wise. And these are your touchstones and convictions. It's also worth mentioning the Chronicle tenets. I actually really like this. Chronicle tenets are table-wide agreements. This can be anything, whether it comes to safety, things that people want to avoid, or a specific genre you want to go for. Some examples of Chronicle tenets would be film noir style, as a reminder that, oh yeah, we want this whole game to feel like a film noir. Or if you want to avoid graphic sexuality and gore, maybe you have the Chronicle tenet PG-13, as a reminder on the sheet, hey, let's keep it to this age rating. This is purely for table etiquette. I love that it's on the sheet, and it's a really cool inclusion. But convictions and touchstones are your character specific. They are inherently connected. Your convictions are things that your character stands for. These are statements, phrases, single words that sum up your character's beliefs, morals that they likely will not budge on. For example, if your conviction is once a liar, always a liar, then the moment your character gets lied to by an NPC or even another player, you know to take that seriously because your character has been hurt before. And every one of your touchstones is connected to a conviction. So perhaps your character had a friend in the past who lied to them, and your character kept giving them more and more second chances until they got seriously hurt by this friend's dishonesty. Well, that friend would be the touchstone to your conviction, once a liar, always a liar. So, if you follow this guide top to bottom, you are ready to play Vampire the Masquerade. This game is awesome, and there's so many potential characters to be made by mixing different clans and disciplines, especially when you throw in Caitiffs and Thin Bloods and their insane customization. It's crazy. Maybe don't play a Thin Blood, unless you're all Thin Bloods. Playing a Thin Blood in a normal campaign would be wild. So I really hope you get to have fun and enjoy this game, telling some dark, morbid stories with your friends, because let me tell you, from personal experience, almost every session of Vampire ends with somebody depressed, traumatized, or dead. It's great.